you ever watched neighbors' arrogance cost them thousands? My husband David has always been one of those people who just knows how things work. Before COVID, he spent years flipping houses as a side gig. He wasn't in it just for the money. He genuinely loved it. Along the way, he learned everything about building codes, permits, inspections, and what you could and couldn't get away with. When the pandemic hit and the house flipping craze went wild, he stepped back. Instead, he kept busy around our own neighborhood, building fences, repairing decks, helping people with small upgrades. To really understand how things worked, he even joined the HOA's architectural committee. He read every bylaw, every regulation, and got to know all the city processes inside and out. If there was ever a person you wanted to ask about whether something in the neighborhood was allowed, it was David. That's why he was concerned when our next-door neighbors, let's call them the Johnsons, started planning their backyard renovation. At first, it seemed innocent enough. They said they wanted their yard to look a lot like ours, but the layout of the land wasn't the same. Our property slopes gently down to the lake with some brush and pine trees at the back. Their lot, just a few feet away, had thick brush covering almost a third of the yard and sat in a low spot of the natural valley. The very first thing the Johnsons did was chop down every single tree in their backyard. Not little trees either. These were 4-story pines and oaks. David casually mentioned that the city required an arborist's approval before removing trees that size. The neighbor brushed him off, saying the city had no business in his backyard, and told David to mind his own business. David shrugged it off. Fine. His warning had been ignored. Then came the retaining wall. They wanted to level their yard with ours, which meant stacking cinder blocks into a wall nearly 8 feet tall. David knew that anything over 5 feet required a structural engineer's approval and inspections, so he carefully asked if the landscapers had cleared that with the city. Again, the response was hostile. Not the city's business, and not yours either. Stay out of it. From that point on, David said nothing. He let them carry on. The Johnsons' crew started hauling in truckloads of dirt, gravel, and sand. Instead of putting it in their driveway, they dumped it in the street, blocking more than half the road. Neighbors with big trucks managed by hopping the curb, but smaller cars had to inch past or couldn't get through at all. By now, tempers were flaring. When David tried to politely suggest they move the piles, the neighbor exploded again, told him to get lost in much harsher words. The noise was constant too. Chainsaws, chippers, and bobcats fired up by 6:45 every morning, 6 days a week. Our kids are early risers, so it didn't bother us much. But other neighbors with young kids or night shifts were furious. And when rains came, the dirt piles turned into mudslides that caused cars to slip in the street. Then the Johnsons built a fence, 10 feet tall, towering over every other property. HOA rules capped fences at 6 feet, and theirs wasn't even an approved design. David noticed, but by then he had stopped offering warnings. He just kept his head down. It didn't take long for someone else to lose their patience. We still don't know who made the call. It could have been the school bus driver, a frustrated neighbor, or maybe the HOA itself, but soon enough, city officials showed up. They slapped a massive sign in the Johnsons' yard. All construction halted until further notice. The fallout was brutal. The city fined them for every tree stump they had illegally cut down. A structural engineer inspected the retaining wall and declared it unsound. It had to be rebuilt from scratch with regular inspections. The HOA fined them for the unapproved fence and ordered it taken down. And all that dirt clogging the street, another violation. The Johnsons were furious and immediately accused us of ratting them out. But David calmly told them the truth. It wasn't us. Nothing you did affected us. I tried to warn you, but you told me to mind my own business, so I did. Construction had started on Black Friday. By early December, the project was completely shut down. 3 weeks later, after fines and new permits, they finally started work again. Their backyard is still a half-finished mess. From what we've heard, those tree fines were especially painful. And while we didn't report them, plenty of neighbors had reason to. Between the blocked road, the early morning racket, and even the ugly flagpole they later added in their front yard, they managed to tick off just about everyone on the block. David still shakes his head when he sees that empty backyard. He tried to help them avoid all of it, but sometimes people have to learn the hard way.